Hi, I'm Jody, and this is Jody's Garden to Table. 13 years ago, when I got married, I really didn't know much cooking other than the basics. I was always the sous chef. I was the one preparing ingredients for my mom. I've always been interested in cooking, and I've always watched like Food Network. But I always just watched and never really made my own food. But when I got married, it was just me and my husband. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment in LA. It was really just the basics. But then I decided that I needed to learn how to cook for both of us, to be healthy, save a little bit of money. And this is how I was able to get myself from just watching those food shows into actually cooking. So the very first thing that you need to do is take stock of your kitchen and your pantry. You don't have to buy like specialized equipment just to start. Here I have around me the things that I actually use every day. So this is what I consider as essentials. You don't have to have everything at once, but if you have some sort of equipment that is similar, I think you could do a lot of things, more than you think you can, with just these few things. Let's start with knife. So this is my favorite knife. It's actually just a regular 8-inch chef's knife. My husband got this probably from Ralph's 15-20 years ago. And when I first got here, his knife was dull. This knife was dull. So one of the very first things that I purchased too is something to sharpen a knife. A sharp knife is so much more safer for you, for your hands, for your fingers. And it's also, you don't have to exert a lot of effort when you're using a sharp knife. This is called a sharpening stone or a whetstone. Usually they kind of are available in Amazon. I've looked it up, and they kind of come in this form, like a rectangle, or one side is a lot smoother for like you kind of fine like sharpening, and the other one's rougher. Or what I usually see most people use is something like this, or that little piece where there's like two round things, and you just grate the edge of the knife on there. So any of those would work as long as you're able to sharpen a knife. And this is also the kind of knife that I would recommend, chef's knife. You don't need any other ones. You don't need fancy ones. You just need one that works. The length of this, the size is really good. Of course, if you're gonna cut something, you need something to cut it on, cut stuff on. So I have both options here. I got a wooden chopping board and I got a plastic chopping board. As you can see, this is both very used because I use this pretty much every day. This is also pretty handy. A small paring knife, peeler, because it's so much faster for peeled potatoes and carrots. And I would also recommend that you get just like this tiny little grater. This is really handy for grating garlic, ginger, a lot of recipes call for minced garlic. You don't want big pieces of garlic in there, you want little pieces. And this is really handy. You can also grate cheese on it to top your pastas or something. And then I also have these spoons. I like this slotted spoon because you use it to get stuff out of, like when you're blanching something and you want the water to drain. Spoon, basic spoon, you can use this to mix dough and mix soup and stuff. And this is also for like if you're stir frying something. I would also recommend a little silicone or rubber spatula because you use this to scrape stuff off. Now, I prefer using bamboo because you can use it on non-stick surfaces. You can also use it on other stuff. And it's just so much more versatile. Now we move on to pots and pans. So honestly, this 8-inch cast iron pan is what I usually use. It sits on my stove because I use it a lot. You can like pan fry meat. You can fry your egg, omelette, whatever. It's just really useful. But I know that a lot of people have kind of, you can have hesitation because it's pretty heavy, and there is a specific way you need to season it to be able to use it properly. Don't believe this stuff where people like, you can't use soap in it, or you can blah blah blah. Cast iron had been used for a long time. You just use it and season and wash it the way you want. If you make a mistake, you can always just scrub or sand it down back to bare metal, and it would be, you can re-season it and it would be fine. If you don't have a cast iron pan, you can also have just a smaller non-stick pan. I like the heavy bottom one. This is pretty heavy. It's just very versatile. I even make crepes with this pan, and that's good. Now, if you like stir frying veggies, which I do quite a lot because we eat a lot of vegetables, you might want to invest on a wok. Now, as you can see, this is very well seasoned and very well used. I use this about once a day, honestly. I had this for over 10 years, and this is a very useful thing for me. It's stir frying, stews. I mean, you can even make soup in here, in this one. And then another thing is a pot like this. I don't know how big this one is. It's probably like about 4-quart pan, heavy bottom with lid. I always recommend that when you get a pot, make sure that you have a lid that fits on it. You can boil spaghetti, boil potatoes, make soups, and I even make my carnitas in this one. You don't need a slow cooker. If you have time and you have a stove and you have a heavy bottom pan like this, you can make carnitas in that. This little saucepan with lid is also very useful for me. I make rice in this. I just cook the rice here. I just find it so much easier and easier to clean. And then you can deep fry stuff in here. Can blanch and make small batches of soup for this, and then I make brine for pickles. Another essential for me is a set of mixing bowls. You can do a lot of things with this. Of course, you can mix ingredients when you're baking. You can also put the stuff that you've chopped up into this one. You can wash vegetables in these, and it has to be different sizes because, you know, it's just more versatile that way. Now, it doesn't have to be a set like this. You could just like find bowls that you have available in your house, and that would be what I mean. Now we move on to some of the baking stuff. Now, if you are interested in baking, a set of spoons, measuring spoons, and a set of measuring cups is essential. It doesn't have to be fancy. I've had this for a long time, and they're really good. And for baking, I would also recommend getting a couple of cookie sheets. My cookie sheets are well seasoned. I use this one at least three or four times a week. And then for easy cleanup, I would also recommend getting one of them. This is called a Silpat mat or a silicone baking mat. I just got one from Amazon. It's really old. I've been using this for quite a while. It's just easy cleanup. And another thing that you can get is parchment paper. The hardest part of cooking, one of the hardest part, is that when you've already done all the effort into cooking, and then you would have to clean up afterwards too. So this just cuts the cleanup time. Now we go to basic ingredients. I would start with the ones that I usually use just for regular cooking. I use seasoning, salting your food. That's the most basic thing. I would recommend, this is kosher salt. I just ran out. This is how much I left. I would recommend kosher salt because the grains are, they're kind of big and flaky, and they're also not as salty as regular table salt. So even if you kind of like sprinkle in a little more than you want to, it would not be as salty. And then I would also recommend having two different kinds of oil. One is light oil, which you use for like frying, and an extra virgin olive oil, which you use for if you make salad dressings or some really like finishing oil kind of. Of course, freshly ground black pepper, this is my pepper mill right here, is essential on almost every meal. And then especially for if you're just starting to cook, I wouldn't recommend like stacking up on onions and garlic. I mean, even just having just some onion powder and garlic powder is already gonna make a difference. And then if you are interested in baking, then I would recommend baking soda, butter, milk, flour. Basically those are the ingredients. Oh, yeast too, yeah. And then those are the essential ingredients. I would recommend you look online and find 2 to 3 recipes, compare them. And once you compare them, you would find that usually there are like 3 to 5 ingredients that are repeated on the recipe, or they're pretty much the same. So that is actually what you would consider as the core recipe, or the very basic recipe. Now, I would say making bread, making yeast bread. Yeast bread just needs yeast, warm water, a little bit of sugar to activate the yeast, flour, and salt. That's the basic thing you need for a yeast bread. But then here's where the difference happens. You add to it, add to the basic recipe, add what you like to the basic recipe. So for example, if you are making pizza, usually they add oil to the recipe. And then if you're making focaccia, how to turn that into focaccia, then you add toppings to that. So that's how you start with a recipe. Find a core recipe and then add the things that you like. Like if you like cheese, add cheese to that recipe. If you like garlic, add garlic to that recipe. And if you have any veggies that you like, you add veggies to that. So that's how you find the recipe. What do you do after you already have the recipe? You gotta master the preparation. Cooking actually takes a lot of preparation. It's either how you prepare the ingredients, chopping, mincing, blanching, julienne. Just get yourself familiar with those terms. And if you actually have a friend that cooks, you might want to volunteer to chop up and help prepare the ingredients and watch them cook. It kind of gets you familiar with how things should be cut, like uniformity, and also gets you practicing your knife skills, which makes it faster as you get to cook on your own. I think this is the most important part, is that you experiment alone. When I started cooking, I used to shoo my husband away, like, get out, leave me alone. And I used to call all the stuff that I cook as experiments. Now, it is important that you taste it, and well, when you're cooking, make sure that you taste as you go along, and make sure that you like it first. You don't have to have anybody taste it for you yet, but when you like it, that's all that matters, right? That's the thing that matters. You make it for your own. Cooking is very personal, taste is very personal, and if you satisfy what you are looking for, then you're already halfway there. For me, one of the things that held me back from learning how to cook way before is that my mom is a really great cook. She can literally start with a whole pig, and 6 hours later we'll have cooked enough to feed a village. Now, whenever I would try to cook on my own, there would always be people all over, you know, like in the kitchen. It's my mom's kitchen, and I would always get like corrected, like every little move. It's like, you know, when you're starting, you can never get everything right. But if you have constant somebody critiquing each move, then it just really just prevents you from doing what you need to do. That's why I would recommend, like, if you are starting to cook, find a kitchen where you can be alone. You can work on your own. You could be with your own thoughts. If you have, like, if you're a visual learner like I am, then you could just have your computer right next to you, and you could watch videos like what I will be making soon. I'm gonna do tutorials and cooking, and then do it on your own. Just like experiment. Cater your first like recipes that you're gonna make to your own taste, and then when you are done cooking, you can have somebody taste it. When if you're kind of scared that it might not taste the right way that the recipe that you're making, just tell them that it's an experiment. Just so it's an experiment, they just need to tell you if it tastes good or not. It doesn't have to be like, oh, this doesn't taste like, you know, the recipe that you're making. So just do it alone and have somebody taste it afterwards. Don't overthink it. You don't need to buy certain stuff. Work with what you already have and just do it. And well, thank you for joining me today. If you want to know and learn the way I cook and also learn my recipes, well, like and subscribe, and see you on the next one.